Okay, today we're going to talk a little bit out of Ephesians 4 and 26, and then we're going to go into Mark 3 and 5. But anyway, Ephesians 4 and 26 says, in your anger, it said, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you're still angry. And then because this verse had encouraged us as believing as Christian people to learn how to manage by not allowing us to lead to sinful thoughts or actions. It also advised us against harboring anger, urging us not to allow anger to persist or to give the enemy an opportunity or a foothold or attack to the enemy, which is the devil. It also tells us that anger is a natural human emotion and is not inherently sinful. Anger can arise, but do not let it lead to sinful action, such as malice, bitterness, or malicious speech. And then in Mark 3 and 5, Jesus himself, see, he had displayed anger at an injustice without sinning. Because Jesus was in the synagogue one day, and it was on Sabbath day. It was on the Sabbath day. And a man with a withered hand was present on that day. But the Pharisees, they watched closely. You know why they watched closely? To see if Jesus would heal that man, hoping to accuse him of breaking their interpretations of the Sabbath law. Jesus asked the Pharisees, he said, is it lawful on the Sabbath day to do good or to do evil? He asked that question. He said, is it to save life or to kill it? And then say, is it a day for doing evil? Is it a day to destroy life? Then Jesus turned to his critics. See, because sometimes you have some critics that's around you. Jesus turned around to his critics and then he asked, does the law permit good deeds on the Sabbath day? But the Pharisees, they remained silent, as answering truthfully would condemn their own malice. The Pharisees, blinded by legalisms, traditions, prioritizing their strict rules over the compassionate act of healing a suffering person. The leaders focused so much on finding fault than accepting the man's healing. Jesus looked around at them angrily. Jesus was deeply angered, and he was deeply saddened by their hard hearts. The hardness of the heart was one of the oppositions that Jesus had faced. It was not a genuine misunderstanding, but it was a stubbornness and the resistance to his authority and his compassion, which grieved God. Jesus had a deep grief, and his anger was mixed with sorrow. He was hard-hearted. He was heartbroken that the spiritual blindness of the religious leaders prevented them from recognizing God's mercy right in the front of him. But Jesus had command for the man. He said, come. He commanded for the man to stretch out his hands because this was an act of faith and obedience. The man's willingness to obey what God had instructed him to do, despite of his disabilities, was met with Jesus' power, and his hand was fully restored. Jesus became angry with his critics because they had lost the whole sense of the Sabbath. Instead of making the Sabbath day to bless and refresh God's human creations, they had made it a day full of rules to the point of harming other people. And Jesus had become angry. Jesus was so angry and disturbed because of their hard heart and their inability to see how they had prevented something that God had intended for good. When religious people or religious goes astray, when what is called faith becomes a tool for hurting those whom God intends to bless, then it must be confronted. And that is precisely what Jesus did on that day. So I like to sum this all up. No one, neither one of you, can ever reach a point in your life where you don't experience a wide variety of feelings. One of those is anger. Being angry can cause many people to feel guilty and condemnation because they have the false idea that Christians should not be angry but be peaceful at all times. Yet the Bible does teach that we are never to feel anger. It teaches that when we do get anger, we are not to sin. Rather, we are to manage or control our anger properly. So remember, anger is just an emotion. And we all have so many different kinds of emotions, like all other emotions. But God gave it to us for a reason. Without the capability to become angry, we would never know when someone mistreats us. We feel appropriate, outrageous, anger, fury, resentment, wrath, unburdenment, and ira, intense anger when others suffer injustice. So without anger, we wouldn't be moved to act or to take a stand against wrongdoing and evil. Anger is like pain. Remember, anger is like a pain. It's there to warn us that something is wrong. And this motivates us to try to make it right or to even improve the situation that's going on around us. As with all emotions, the enemy always tries to use and abuse our anger and lead us into sin. But we have the power to resist the enemy. So I like to leave you with this prayer on today. And it says prayer, Father in heaven, help us, God, to manage our anger wisely in a positive way so that we will not sin. Show us how to manage our emotions in a way that honors you, honors God, not you, not me, but honors God. And please never let our heart become hardened because of our religious zeals. We want to be passionate in our faith because we never want to become so blind that we are destroyed your will and end up hurting those that you want to bless. Keep our hearts soft, open to you and to those whom you want us to touch with your grace. This we